I am delighted for the offer of speaking today, Simon. So just to double check, you can see, I suppose, full screen now on my slide.
Yes, exactly. All good.
So today we're going to do quite, let's say, an end-to-end example of using a couple of different Microsoft technologies. And I want to put it out there right now that I need you, who is looking at this, to take part, because it's very important that I get some interaction from you guys. And I'll tell you what exactly that means in just a moment. So the first thing I am going to show you is what I need from you, my dear listeners, today. So what we're going to do is we're going to process some images and put them through, and they're going to be processed via Power Automate. Power Automate is going to call some cognitive services functions, both facial recognition and object detection. It's going to store all of that data into a SQL Server database. And then we're going to open up that SQL Server database in Power BI and do some analysis on the images that you have sent to me. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. If you have a look on the slide at the moment, you can see I want you to send me an email, please, to image@datalineo.com. So you can get your phone out or do it on your desktop and send an image as an attachment. You can actually send multiple images per email. Don't worry about how many you send. Obviously, don't go crazy. We need to have something absorbable for this session. And what I like to get are selfies of people, because some of the cognitive services functions we're going to do are facial recognition and facial detection type stuff. So we do need some people. Pictures of you and friends, things like that. As well as we're doing object detection. So if you take photos of stuff that's on your desk, your watch, your shoes, your keys, anything like that, that's another option that you can send through. What I find quite often, so I've delivered this session a few times, people go a bit crazy with sending, it used to be Donald Trump type stuff, but let's keep politics out of it, because it's too much of a bother these days. And certainly today, what we don't want, please, is Meghan Markle or Harry. So let's keep that one off the radar. Just to let you know, and this is 100% guarantee, that none of these images are stored permanently. So they're all deleted and swept up later today. I don't socialize any of those images, and everything's cleaned up. So don't worry about those images being repurposed for anything that you don't want. I have a PowerShell script that goes through and wipes them from my email, from the SQL Server database, and from the Azure storage where they're put. Okay, so get going. And what I'm going to do is put on a live Power BI report that is going to show some images coming through in real time. So what we're looking at the moment, it's a very simple report, but it's just going to start increasing as those images come through. And you know what? I'm going to be a man of my word, and I'm going to send an image while I'm talking to you. You can actually see this in real time, okay? So I'm going to take a selfie. Okay, let's have a look. Two fingers up like that. Okay, and I'm going to email that just like you're going to do. I can see one email's come in already. So the emails received on the screen says 6. That will start to increase as all of you kindly send some images through. Don't worry about what the subject is. It can be anything. Okay, where is it? There it is. Okay, so that's me, if you can just see that. Don't worry if you can't see it too clearly. That's me sending that image that I just took of myself. And we're going to send that through, and off it goes. And what we should start to see, it takes a few minutes. So Microsoft Flow is reading that inbox and picking up all of the emails that you guys are sending through. And my next slide is going to show you a little bit more detail about what exactly the Microsoft Flow or Power Automate is actually doing. Now look at those numbers. See, it's starting to come through. I've got 9 emails already, 17 images processed, a total of 35 megabytes. So now is when Flow is doing its work. So thank you so much for all the people who have sent some messages, some emails in. I hope to see a few more coming through. I'll look back at that live dashboard in just a moment. So while that's happening, and while you're still sending images in, we're going to cover off the stuff that's not that important as part of this session, the agenda. So first things first, I want you to send in your pictures, and I hope you're busy sending them in. The next thing is going to be a diagram showing what Microsoft Power Automate is doing, reading the images from the inbox and how it's processing them. It's a kind of a conceptual diagram of what's happening. It shows how Power BI is playing its part. It shows you how Microsoft Cognitive Services is playing its part, and other things like SQL Server. It's parsing JSON. It's doing lots of really cool stuff. And then at the end, when all of that information has been stored, logged, and analyzed, we're going to open it up in Power BI, and we're going to browse through, look at the images, and just see what comes through. Okay. Just a little bit about myself, and I won't linger on this one too long because Simon already did a nice introduction. But yes, I'm managing director of a company called Datalineo, based here in Dublin. I'm an MVP of Data Platform. I do tons of community stuff with Power BI here in Dublin, as well as helping other user groups. We created an Irish-wide community group called the Community Cafe as a reaction to lockdown, which was, I suppose, this time last year. Rather than closing down all of our in-person events, we got together as an Irish community and put on a weekly community event that lasted, that's actually still in play at the moment. We have another event called Data Ceilidh. Ceilidh is an Irish word, and it means kind of like a community get-together or a dance kind of thing. And so we use that as our naming for an event that we're having later on this year. Plus, I've spoken at various other events and so on. There's my Twitter handle. So if you do want to follow me and keep up with any ramblings that I might put out there on Twitter, I'd be happy to see some followers join me. So in terms of slides, this is really the only slide that matters for this whole session. The rest of it is going to be demo-related content, okay? So let's take a wander through what we're looking at. But before I do, let's pop back and see how many images have come through so far. So I have received 14 emails so far with 25 images processed, a total of 45 megabytes. So I'm not sure if any other people are out there still planning to send them through. Absolutely jump on your phone. Oh, there's one more, 15, that's great. Pop through some images. But let's have a look at what's happening in the background. Power Automate, okay, is starting off with a trigger, and I'll open up the actual flow itself and we'll have a look at it in detail, but there's a lot to it, and this one summarizes it in a much easier way for you to understand. So our trigger is when an email arrives that has an attachment. It will then kick off the rest of the flow. The first thing it does is it does a loop through for every attachment that is included in that email. So that's why I said you can actually include multiple images in your email, and it will loop through for every image that's in the email. The first thing it does is it stores the image in Azure storage, an Azure storage container. Now, I could store that into a SQL Server database as an image type, but you know what? It's not very efficient for storing images, and that's what Azure Storage is great at, and that's where I store the actual photo that you're sending through. As I'm picking them up, I'm writing to a streaming Power BI dataset. So you can see at the bottom of the diagram, Power BI is being used twice. The first thing it's doing is writing data straight away to a streaming dataset. And again, if I just pop that streaming image open or streaming report open, you can see as soon as the flow picks up an image, it will pump a data point straight into this report, and we'll see pretty much in real time the number of emails arriving. And that's what the streaming dataset is doing. It's then writing the data or the metadata associated with that email into a Microsoft SQL Server database in the cloud. So it's a typical Azure SQL database. It writes metadata like the sender, the email sender, the date that it arrived, and a few other things like the size of the image, and of course the location of the image that I'm storing it in Azure Storage. That's the kind of the first thing it does, but then it goes off and does the more exciting things. You can see that it branches here and does things in parallel, and the actual flow that we're going to look at does these things in parallel. So it branches off in one direction, and it calls the Cognitive Services Face API. And you can see it calls two different components. The first thing it does with the Face API is facial attributes. So facial attributes is not recognition. It's not really who it is. It's what the Cognitive Services picks up in an image in terms of the location of the face, the number of faces, if it sees any faces, and some very specific things like the tilt of the head and the pitch of the head, the location of the eyes, and also some interesting things like it will try and detect the gender of the people that it sees in the image, the age of the people that it sees in the image, and other things as well, like are they wearing lipstick, are they wearing eye makeup, and a few other things like that. And I'm showing some of those things, not all of them, in the Power BI report. The next thing it does is facial recognition. So this isn't recognition of famous people as such. It's recognition of a number of images that I've placed into a recognition group so that if it will compare new images coming through and says, I recognize that because Ben put 5 images into his recognition database, and I can recognize that's Ben. So it will pick up people that I've placed in a recognition database. As it happens, going back to the facial attributes, if the person's quite famous, there is some information that will come back regarding if it will detect who they are. And all of that information is written to SQL. What you can also see in this diagram, and these are only small icons, and don't worry if you can't see them too closely, but this is just to let you know of other kinds of things that it's doing inside the flow. So one of them is parsing JSON data. So obviously all of the APIs are giving me back JSON data, and I use a really great step in Power Automate that will allow me to just parse the JSON and grab the results and use them however I need. Another one here, this blue symbol with the lines across it. The face APIs actually have size limits on the images. I actually can't remember exactly what it is. It's either 2 or 4 megabytes. It's a fairly high value, but if your image is too big, the Face API will actually reject it. So what I have inside the flow is a check to see what size the image is. If it's too big, I will pass it off to this step, which is a third-party action that will resize the image down to something more acceptable before it sends it to the Face API. So it's handy that it doesn't really matter what size image you send through, it will still resize it down if necessary. The other thing that it does in parallel is the computer vision API. So this isn't about faces, it's more about object detection. And this one, in terms of object detection, will look at the image and create a number of tags. So if the image is of a garden scene or something like that, you'll see a lot of tags like tree, garden, and things like colors like green, outdoors, all that kind of stuff that are used if you're trying to sort or find or filter images of a certain generic type. It will allow you to use those as a searching mechanism. It also comes back with an item description. So if it's a picture of you that you send and you're standing just in front of the camera, it gives it a one-sentence description like person in front of a camera or person posing for a picture. Or it might say something like a number of objects on the desk and things like that. So we're going to see what it comes back with all of the images that all of you have sent through. And again, as per all of the other steps, everything is written to a SQL database. What's written to the SQL database is actually the pure raw JSON that I get back from the APIs, and I'm using Power BI to parse that JSON in my report here. I'm also parsing it up here because I need some of the information, like the size of the image, just so that I can send it to the right step if it's too big and grab the name of the file and things like that. And as you can see, what we're doing down the bottom is I have a Power BI report, a different type of Power BI report that's not streaming. It's a refresh or an import mode report that's going to go and read all of the data we've collected from the SQL database and it's going to give us a nice report and a nice view of everything that we've discovered. We're going to have a look at that in a few minutes. The last thing it does, it will give you an email back. So if you've sent me an email with an image, you would have received back already a nicely formatted email that was done by the Microsoft Flow that tells you the object description of what it found in all of the images, or one image that you sent through to me. And last is the most important thing, that email is then deleted, never to be recovered again, because I don't need it anymore, and I want to keep all of your information safe. So that's the process. Gets the email, does a lot of processing of the attachments and stores all the data. We're going to have a look at it in Power BI, and then we're going to wander through the actual flow and see how that works. So the first thing we're going to do is open up Microsoft Flow. So this is the actual flow. I have a flow called Image Analytics Analyze Email. Now I'm just going to do a refresh, and we should see that it has actually, two of them are still running. So maybe this one had quite a large email. It's been running for 4 minutes. This one's been running for 18 seconds, so that only just came in. But you can see 4 minutes, 7 minutes ago, these are the ones that you guys have sent me already. Okay, so let's have a look at the edit of this flow. And we're going to wander through in more detail than what was on the slide at what is happening. So here's our trigger, and the trigger is when an email arrives to image@datalineo.com in the inbox. And if we have a look at our advanced options, you will see there's a couple of things here that I pretty much chose all of the defaults, except one thing I had to change is include attachments was set to no. Now I had to set that to yes because this whole flow is about the attachments in the email. The next thing I'm doing is a lot of variables. There are more efficient ways to do this, and back when I wrote this, I didn't know that, and certainly it's something that I will be correcting, but I have a variable that contains lots of information, lots of variables that contain various pieces of information that I'm going to need later on in my flow. So say, for example, the sender email, I've created or I've initiated a variable, and I'm using the from email address inside this variable because I want to email you back later on, and that's what I need that sender email for. And lots of other different things here. I'm not going to open this one because that's my API key for cognitive services, which I use in my HTTP request later on. Now, if we scroll right down to the bottom, you can see that we do a big step here called apply to each attachment. And then we respond back to you with the email, and then I delete the email. Now, where's all the actual action happening? It's all inside this step here. As soon as I select on this step, you will see it blows out to a lot more things that are happening. And this expands and expands and expands again because there's lots of looping going on. So the first step is to apply to each attachment. It grabs lots of information and sets a lot of new information. Now, because I'm traditionally a SQL Server database and data warehousing guy, I need to create keys and unique identifiers for all of my data to go into SQL. So every attachment that I get, I create a brand new unique identifier using this function. So let's have a look at that function. This is a little bit more advanced, but it's not that complicated. I have my variable called image GUID. And how do I populate that? Every time this loops through, it goes and grabs a new GUID using this expression, nice and simple, called GUID. So that just generates a unique identifier. I'm setting a few things like the image. So when I'm storing the image in my Azure storage, a lot of you might be sending images that you've saved from the past or actually taken on the spot. And sometimes I had found that the images were having the same name, and this was causing problems. So what I do is I use the image GUID, or my unique identifier, and I append that or prepend that to the beginning of the attachment name, and I store that with that name inside my Azure storage. It ensures that every image has a unique name. So let's see what else it does. It gets the attachment details. So this is where it's going to grab the attachment that was sent through and obtain a lot of the metadata associated with that. attachment. Now, I need that because the size of the file is very important. You can see I'm setting a switch here, that if the size of the file is bigger than a certain value, now we're going to have a look at this expression, and it's going to look pretty ugly, so I'm not going to try and walk you all the way through it. You see this statement here, it says if the attachment details size is greater than 64K, then 0, and if it's greater than here, which is just over 4 megabytes, then I set this value to 2, otherwise 1. So basically, I'm setting 3 different options here. If it's smaller than, so here this statement here, it says if it's less than, I have to convert it to an integer, and I grab that, the value. If it's less than 64,000. Now, the thing is that a lot of people were sending me emails that had a footer with an image of their company logo or something like that, and I didn't want to really process them. So if anybody sent an image that's smaller than 64,000 bytes, then it's actually ignoring that. If it's greater than 4 megabytes, then that's going to be too large. And this is where we have a switch statement to do a couple of things. First thing is if the file is large, or if my value is 2, then I call this process to resize the image. If it's a normal size attachment, if it's meaning it's greater than 64,000 bytes, but less than 4 megabytes, it stores that image straight into my Azure storage. So you can see those two things are doing exactly the same, except this one resizes it first. And if it's too small, it goes off to the default step, which says, I'm not going to do anything with this one, it's too small. Now, my condition here is to say, right, I'm now going to start processing this file. And the first thing it does, it writes to my streaming data set. So this is where it's going to add rows to a data set. And this is a streaming Power BI data set. And if you don't know what a streaming data set is in Power BI, it's where you can write data in real time and have that up on a dashboard, and the numbers are reflected immediately. It's very good for IoT type scenarios where you don't want to refresh it every hour or every day. You need to see that number coming in straight away. Here's where we branch off left and right. So here's my facial face detect HTTP step and my HTTP vision. So this is my object detection API, and this is my facial my face API. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see it's calling a post method. That's my endpoint and my key, which is stored in my variable, and the actual body of the body that's sent through. And this is actually pointing to the location in Azure storage. So I don't need to stream the image through. Again, I point to my Azure storage and say, it's over there in Azure storage. You go off and perform the facial API calls and tell me what you find. Now, I've got a number of conditions because sometimes that facial detection API will come back and say, I don't detect any faces, actually. It might be an image of a coffee cup that you've sent me, so there's no faces. So the first thing is to check that there were faces found, and then it goes off and writes that row into a SQL table. I'm parsing that, the JSON from the earlier step, and I'm applying it to each face that comes through. So this is where you did send me an image with faces in it, and it has to apply this step because it could find multiple faces. So we loop through the number of attachments, we loop through each image, and we loop through the number of faces in each image. So you can see we're looping and looping and looping multiple times. And it goes on a little bit more because sometimes we have identification of faces. So this is where it says, for every one of those faces, go and check if this is in Ben's facial recognition database. Now let's scroll up a little bit and close these branches a little and have a look at the object detection. So this is the object detection API. It's much the same again. This is my endpoint, and I'm also passing it the location of the image that I stored in Azure storage. And after that, it's much the same thing again. It's parsing the results of that JSON and storing the results into a SQL database. You can see here it inserts the row into SQL, and it applies. What are we doing in this one? Oh, this is where I'm actually appending data to a string, which ultimately is going to be sent back to you in the email. So that's the flow. It's very complicated. It took me a long time to write it because I started off with a very simple process, and I wanted to add more and add more and add more, and it eventually grew into what you're seeing now. It's been running for a couple of years and has not really caused one hiccup at all, and I'm really happy with the way flow is working in this scenario. Okay, so I think that's enough for flow. Let's have a look in Power BI. Before we do that, I am going to check how many we got. 25 emails with 57 images processed. So let's take a look at all of those. Now I have a virtual machine. Okay, so this is my Power BI report. I have preloaded with a couple of images that I took earlier today. Those three there are me doing silly faces, but there's a reason for that. So what let's do first is refresh, and we're going to go off and pull through all of those images that you sent. It's going off to SQL Server. It's loading those images from SQL, and there we have a lovely big collage of all of the images that you guys have sent through. That's fantastic. I recognize this one. That one was a Twitter thing. I tweeted something similar to that the other day. Okay, so that's all the images. We have the 57 images, and here's all the tags from all of those images. So let's go and have a look, and we can quickly filter something like, there's 8 dog tags. So let's filter to that. And there's some images that came up with dog in the tag. I'm going to say up front, sometimes they're pretty weird. I actually only see one dog there. There's a keyboard, and there's somebody sitting at the beach, and there's some bottles of alcohol and some nice looking food, but I don't know how I came up with dog for that one. Let's have a look at, now let's have a look at this one called old, and look at that, all images of me. I'm not really happy with that one, but let's have a look and see, is young here as well? Maybe it is. Oh, it's not filtered. Let me sort this by tags in reverse order. Other way, young. There's a lot of young people have sent images through. That's brilliant, but guess what? I'm in those one as well. So I don't know whether I'm young or old these days. You have to have pretty thick skin when it comes to some of these tags. So that's the image cloud, but let's take a closer look at those images. I'm going to pop over here to my image description page. And what we're going to see here is every image that we got sent through. Now, I do note that there's one that didn't work, and there is a reason for that. It took me a while to kind of work out why that is. But what happens is if you resize the image from your phone, sometimes it causes a problem or sends that image through with a subfolder, and Power BI can't find that subfolder in the Azure storage. It's a bit of a bug. I haven't really spent all the time to try and fix that as of yet. So let's wander down. So I'm going to pick this one first. If I select on it, you'll see my my sender. So thank you very much, Pradeep. And let's have a look at what we're getting with this image. So the object description is a man wearing sunglasses and smiling next to a body of water. I think that's a pretty good description. So Pradeep, absolutely, standing next to a body of water. Here's the image tag for that particular image. And we can see that looks pretty close. We can see things like, dog was there, but we see beach, we see board wearing, water, river, smiling, sunglasses. We also see young Pradeep, that's good. It's a kind of very broad way of tagging images with lots of somewhat relevant and sometimes irrelevant tags that are associated with an image. Now I'm going to wander through, and I'm going to be the first person to show you this part. So this is the image that I just sent a few minutes ago. Now let's have a look at this as well. You can see that the number of faces spotted is 1. So this image only had 1 face in it, and the number of faces recognized was also 1. Now, because my database, recognition database, only contains images of me, then yes, of course, it recognized me. If we pop back and look at that picture of Pradeep, you'll see the faces recognized is 0 because he's not in my database of recognizable people. You can see there's 32 image tags and 1 object detection as well, and that object detection is person. So let's speed things up a little bit, and I'm going to jump to people pictures first. They always get preference. So let's have a look at this one. So let's have a look. We have a man in a blue shirt. Now, if I put your picture up, I want you to write some comments because it's nice to see what you think of the image and some of the stuff that it's detected. I'm going to go back to this image of me because this is the most important part. If I mouse over this image, we're going to see some information regarding facial expressions. So there's one image in this, one face in this image, and it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different facial expressions that it will split into a total of 100%. Now, as it happens, this one has allocated 100% of happiness for this image. So I'm definitely pulling a happy face. Now, this is the cool part. It has recognized me. That's why it says Ben Watt there. For everybody else who sends an image through, it will say unknown because it doesn't recognize you. Now, the age has come back at 48. I'm very thick-skinned about this. So my age is 45, and I'll be 46 in 1 month, just less than 1 month. So let's say closer to 46. It's close. I'll be honest, it often puts me a little bit older than I actually am. Gender is male, and I'm not wearing eye makeup. I'm not wearing lip makeup, which I'm actually not, so that's good. So let's go back here, and we're going to look at this one, and let's mouse over and have a look at what we see here. Now, if you would like to let us know, we see 24 as the age. If you want to write in the comments, and it's totally up to you. If you think it's close, if it makes you sad, or if it makes you happy, then let us know if it's a good guess. But we can see it's given you 96% happy and 4% neutral. Let's wander through. We have another image here, and let's see what we see. 79% happy and 20% neutral. We have a 46-year-old male. Not too bad. One face spotted. And look, you can see I can see the background. So we know this is really a live picture. So thanks very much, Thomas, for sending that through. And Thomas, if you can work away with the chats, that's absolutely fine. And tell us if you're happy with that age and so on detection. And we can see the objects detected as a TV display and a person. So let's have a look through. Images like this will come up with, now this is a very cool one. Have a look at this. It's actually spotted 23 faces. So it's picked up a lot of faces from here. Now, I don't know exactly how many are in this Twitter thing here, but it has actually picked up a lot of these faces here. And if I mouse over it, you'll see that it has lots of different views of happiness and some neutral faces and so forth. So I think it's excellent at picking up small faces in images. And you can see the detection here is graphical user interface, which is correct. Now, I think, Simon, this is that's you in the middle, right? So I think that was sent in by you. So well done. Let's wander through. So we have 2 hot dogs on a grill. Let's wander through a group of people on a city street. Okay, this one, a little girl riding on top of a grass-covered field. And guess what? That is my daughter, and that is my son in the background on a trip to, we used to live in Switzerland, actually. So that was down near Interlaken in the south of Switzerland. Let's wander through and see some more. We have a person standing in front of a building. Yep, so that looks pretty good. This one here, so let's look at the facial expressions of this one. This is me doing an angry face, and I wasn't really angry. I was just trying my best to show something for you. And look, we have here a combination of anger and disgust. I guess that's about right. And I'm probably mostly angry at my age detection, which again is older than I actually am. Let's wander through. So let's focus on pictures of people because we have so many. Pradeep is, again, Thomas, actually, I just see your comment. Yeah, very good, Thomas. I'm very impressed. So I bet you feel really good about having a younger age than you are with this detection. I don't know how, but for me, it's always older. So Pradeep has sent through a person wearing sunglasses posing for the camera. And let's do a quick mouse over and see. And we have Pradeep is coming up 83% happy, 17% neutral, and he's a 30-year-old male. Maybe he is only 17% neutral. Maybe that bunch of flowers is not quite big enough. I'm not sure if that was being passed off to a partner. Maybe next time buy a bigger bunch, and she or he will be much happier. There's Simon again. 19, Simon. Simon, you're going to have to tell us: are you close, or are you happy with that? Chuck it into the comments. Okay, here's one I did earlier, and this is a close-up of a book. It's actually a chocolate bar, not so close. Okay, let's focus on the people pictures. And here is one from Frank Dossing. And it actually, I think it might be because of the contrast. I do apologize, Frank. It didn't actually pick up your face in that one. As much as a human can pick up a face very clearly, I do believe it's because it's such a bright background, it wasn't able to detect a face there. Let's wander through. Here's a good one with lots of different faces in it. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can see 8 faces spotted. Now, hang on a second. This is from Simon Tiago Hollander et al. Posing for a photo. I don't know who Tiago Hollander is, but I'm wondering, Thiago. Okay. I have it's on my other screen. If anyone wants to Google Tiago Hollander and have a look, I think he looks a little bit like you, Simon. So that's why this object description has come up saying Tiago Hollander. So you can see this one actually thinks you're famous. And if we mouse over this one, let's have a look. And we should see lots of information here about different faces. And you can see for the most part, everyone is happy. Somebody is a little bit neutral. And this is how we can detect maybe who it is. So what I don't have in this image or in this report is who is actually which person. The response back from the API does tell me the location of each of these faces, but I'm just not processing in this Power BI report. But I can do a little bit of process of elimination. So you can see here, I've got the last 3 letters of the ID, 952. And if we go down here and look for 952, we can see it's a male of age 32. So that rules out some of the people. And if we try and work out which one of those is looking a little bit more neutral, a male age 32, it could be this one. It could be that one because everyone else has definitely got a happy face. And this one, to me, looks like it could be the neutral one. Let's wander through. A man talking on a cell phone. So Rohit sent that through. So Rohit, if you're happy with the age thing, and let's see what it says. Oh, actually, it didn't pick up any faces. Another thing that the facial recognition can lack a little bit is if the face is not front on. If the face is facing to the side, sometimes it can not pick that up. Okay, so Pradeep has sent another one, and in this one, only one face is spotted, a man wearing sunglasses taking a selfie. That looks about right. So let's look at some objects, close-up of a flower, and you can see we have group, room, object, person. Actually, one face has been spotted. So if we look here, you can just see there's a face in the background, and it has actually picked that up, which is pretty unbelievable because this one here, it picked it up. But if we go up to this image up here, which I believe was Frank, it didn't pick it up. So lighting definitely has something to play in the ability to pick up the images. Okay, Simon sent another one through. We have a person looking at the camera. Let's mouse over and see what we get. We get a 23-year-old female looking 100% neutral. So definitely not smiling too much for the camera there, Simon. Okay, let's walk through, see a few more. And then the next one is VB, who sent through this one, 23-year-old female, kind of a good mixture, mostly happy, a little bit of neutral. I think it looks about right. A person wearing sunglasses taking a selfie in a car. So it's quite specific, but it is quite accurate. Let's look at this one. Okay, so one face spotted. Let's mouse over and see. So we have a 46-year-old male, 91% neutral. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is an interesting one. So if we look, let's go back and look at the previous one. I'm going to mouse over and zoom in. And what I want you to do is look at these facial expression options. Now, these are the only options that you get. So whatever face you're pulling, it will take the value 100% and split it across these 8 options here. Now, they all make sense to me except one. Anger, yes. So imagine somebody walking into a room and you say, that person looks angry, yes. That person looks disgusted, yes. Happy, yes. Neutral, yes. Sad, fear, contempt, okay? And surprise, yes. So you could quite often say that person looks surprised, or that person looks afraid, or that person looks sad. But when has anybody ever said that that person looks contempt? And more to the point, what is the face that says contempt? And guess what? It took me a long time to work it out, but I finally got it. And it's this face here. If you ever swing your mouth to the side, then Microsoft Cognitive Services thinks you're pulling a contempt face. So let's mouse over here and we zoom in and look at this. It's 100% contempt. So if you're ever telling a story, or if you're like me delivering a session and you look out into the crowd and people have their mouths to the side, I have a bad feeling that you're not enjoying that session. So I hope none of you are making that face right now. But another little bonus is this is 46. So it actually thinks I'm younger when I do a contempt face. So maybe that's the face I should be pulling from now on. There's Simon doing the exact same as me. Great stuff, Simon. I'm going to wander down and pick a couple more and see what I see. Great. Rohit sent this one through, 100% neutral. Let's have a look at this one. A bottle of wine. Close, maybe. Okay, so Ashwini has sent that through. Ashwini, we have 91% happy and 9% neutral. Still not too bad. 21-year-old female wearing eye makeup and lip makeup. So I'm not sure if you're happy with that, but we have a woman taking a selfie. Not too bad. There's Simon. That's Simon's Twitter profile picture. Let's wander through. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now we're at the end and I've gone over by a couple of minutes, so I'm going to wrap things up there. I'll pop open my slide and close this one down and pop open the last slide and say thank you to everybody.